This is Rating Descending,
where we watch IMDb's Worst 250 so you don't have to.
My name is Abigail Ward.
And I'm Michelle St. Clair.
And today we watched The Island of Dr. Moreau, 1996. After being rescued and brought to an island, a man discovers that its inhabitants are experimental animals being turned into strange-looking humans, all of it the work of a visionary doctor. Let's watch. Okay, you're right. A coffee with not off milk is far better than a coffee with off milk.
Yeah,
How'd you get so small?
It's a hot take. Milk's better when it's not off.
Agreed.
But cold take, hot milk is better.
Nah, cold milk's better.
Nah, I like hot milk.
Nothing like slurping down a gallon of ice cold milk in the morning like I do.
Ew.
Probably explains why I'm on the toilet for 8 hours a day, but nothing like that ice cold milk in the morning. Straight from a cow's udder.
I hate just a glass of milk. I hate that.
I love it.
It really unsettles me.
I love it.
When I see a grown man drinking like just a glass of milk, I have to wonder what's wrong with them.
I know that right now it is generally frowned upon to drink a full glass of milk. I
Yeah.
feel like I see on TikTok a lot of people making jokes about people that do that, but I do that.
No, you don't. I've never seen you do that.
It's because I don't keep milk in the house anymore.
You don't do it in front of me.
It's all a secret. I have a mini fridge in my room under my bed and it's just full of milk. And every variety too, in case I want to switch it up.
Oh.
Do we have half and half in Australia?
No,
I feel like we don't.
We don't do that.
Yeah.
We just
don't dabble in that shit.
We don't go 50-50 because half and half is like half full cream milk, half no fat milk.
I think it's half full cream and half skim.
Right.
But I can't be certain.
Which, by the way, worst combo.
Also,
half skim.
1% milk as well as a thing in America.
Yeah.
They call it 1%.
They're
And
2%.
And then there's also 1%.
Oh, I thought there was just 2%.
There's two varieties, apparently. I always remembered that bit in fucking...
Scott Pilgrim?
No, Napoleon Dynamite. Where she's drinking milk out of a little box. Now that's fucked up. Just drinking milk out of a little box with a straw like it's like an apple juice that you've got at lunch.
Yeah.
And she's drinking it. And I think he goes like, oh, you're drinking low-fat milk? You don't need it. You look great. Which is, very nice, really.
Yeah. Well, in Australia, I feel like we just go full cream straight down to full skim. And then we have no fat milk. I don't think we do 2% or half and half.
Unlike that famous ad of that man in the convenience store, and then he's like, oh, can I get some milk? And then she lists off all the kinds of milk he can have. And he's like, nope, I just want the normal stuff. That ad, we don't sell that many varieties of milk anymore.
No, we don't.
I was thinking about this the other day. I was like, that's a great ad. And people love putting it on their Tinder bios of like full cream, skim milk, extra dollop, half fat, like listing it out. But I've never seen that variety of milk. And I think that's just a general inconsistency with the ad that I can never overlook.
I think it's partly like our dairy farmers, I feel like, are just as powerful as they are in the US, but we didn't have an 80s and 90s advertising campaign by a milk lobby to try and make milk a normal drink, just equal to Coke or tea.
It's so weird. Like, we shouldn't be drinking milk in general. Like, that is baby cow milk. That is baby cow juice from its mummy. That is for baby cows. We are not baby cows. We're human beings. We actually have a very natural intolerance to milk, but because we're fed it as babies, we grow up to just be immune to the actual effects of milk. So if you stop drinking milk for like 2 years and you have a glass of it, you will feel sick.
Well, I mean, so it's not that I disagree with you, but the logical conclusion to your argument makes me go, would you drink a lot of human milk? Because I probably would. We think it's gross, but I probably would.
Apparently it's super sour, so I don't think I'd actually enjoy the taste of it. Breast milk is really sour. It's not creamy.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
I guess what I mean is not that I would...
And I like that would I as if I haven't already. You don't know what I get up to, obviously. What kind of milk do you think's in that mini fridge under my bed? It's all booby milk.
It's all booby milk. I guess it's just, I don't know, like if it was consensually given and it wasn't like a sex thing, I'd drink people milk. I don't think it's any grosser than drinking milk from any other animal.
Well, apparently, yeah, apart from the taste, like socially, You're saying, would I drink titty milk?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Women don't lactate unless they're pregnant, so it's hard to come by.
Yeah.
There's not women just freely giving out their titty milk.
Well, but that's what I mean. That's only because we don't encourage pregnant women to sell their milk.
This is true.
we could, again, as long as it's ethical, right? I don't want to have like a team of Colombian women who all they do is get pregnant and give off
There's a
milk.
lot of social no-nos around this idea, I have to say.
Yeah, but I mean,
They all have to be pregnant, and we're taking their milk. I mean, like, does all the money go to the women, or are you like a pimp that's taking half the cut?
no. I'm saying it needs to be like the fair trade equivalent, where it's like an upscale scarf where they're like, oh, it's from Vietnam, but it's from actually well-paid Vietnamese women.
So when pregnant women are at the doctor's office and they're like, all right, well, congratulations, you're pregnant. And she like holds her husband's hand and they're like, we did it. And then the doctor hands them across brochures about where to get started. And there's one pamphlet that is your advertisement to sell titty milk for the duration of her pregnancy.
It's just me on the front doing like a hands up, huh? When it's just like, too much milk?
And like the text is in a bubble and it's obviously a bubble of milk.
Yeah.
Like it's a squirt of milk. Yeah.
Yeah. Too much milk?
Is that the next merch shirt that we're going to go have for Reading Descending? It's me saying,
milk?
I love science, and you saying, too much milk?
Too much milk? Well, because then you open the pamphlet and that's when it gets into
and milk
like,
just pours out.
sell it. Oh.
It's a
No, I
sample.
can't-
It's a sample pamphlet.
If I have to harvest this milk ethically through like consent of a rarefied
You're not going to
version
give
of-
it out for samples.
I'm not going to just like
How are
throw
we gonna
milk
know the
into
quality of your
pamphlets.
product, Michelle? Like you're not thinking like a businessman,
By-
all right?
by
You don't
purchasing
have
some.
to ask me. I will do your marketing.
You're not entitled
for you.
to it.
No, it's fine.
I'll
All I
sell
ask
it.
is a
I'm-
modest sum of $800,000 a year plus
No.
super and gym membership.
No, I will
You're
sell it.
insane!
My
You're
whole
insane!
thing is selling.
Give me a job!
If you want some, just buy some.
If I want some, just get dick down and get a baby in me. Put a bun in this oven today for $9.99. .00. I'm not cheap. It's fine if I am cheap, but I'm not cheap. I want money. Lots of it. Give me your fucking money.
I've never seen you more money driven in my life than right now today.
Yeah, I think titty milk just, it's like an oasis of inspiration and
Well,
ideas.
see, that's the difference between us. I'm in it for the love of the milk, and you're just in it for the money.
What's new?
Why are you in this game? It's for the milk.
For the milk. Now, actually, I'm really keen to get into the movie today
Yeah,
because
well-
I have a lot to tell you.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited to tell you this insane story. And I
Yes,
think today's
please.
episode is going to go a little bit differently, mainly because of titty milk. Cue the ad.
To be fair-
Milk!
Too much milk?
Yeah, I do. I have too much milk.
Well, then sell it! Coming in on a skateboard.
Shh, that's me squeezing my titties out.
Michelle's titty milk. Ethical. Fair trade. Organic.
Oh.
We'll get certified.
Boing. Titty milk!
That's it.
Anyway, back to the movie.
Well, this is a good intro because that whole bit made me really uncomfortable, and this movie also made me really uncomfortable.
We're not even dabbling in segues today, Michelle. We're getting straight
it's not
into
a
the bare
segue.
bones
It's
of it.
relation.
Okay.
I'm on your side.
All right. Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
We have a lot to talk about. So we watched the 1996 remake of The Island of Dr. Moreau, which is based on the 1896 novel by H.G. Wells.
Yeah. Oh, H.G. Wells did it.
Yes.
Okay.
Classic book. It's been remade about 5 times in films. And then, as I said to you last night, what I mainly know it from is that episode of Treehouse of Horror where that's the Island of Dr. Hibbert.
Same.
Yeah.
Honestly, same.
Yeah, that was like my main point of reference.
I like H.G. Wells. Haven't read the book, so this is another version of something that is based on something else, and I'm like, well, I really hated that. I hope it's not because the original classic is bad.
I mean, no, because the original classic is, if you remake something 5 times, the source material's got to be pretty fucking strong and good, right?
I also feel like it's the same thing as Heart of Darkness, where like this is a story that doesn't movie very well.
It's funny you say Heart of Darkness because that is a point of reference for me about the making of this film.
Oh, okay.
It's a very Apocalypse Now, Heart of Darkness kind of thing.
Well, because it is similarly a European goes to a tropical region and goes insane.
Yes. A European goes to a tropical region to make a film about a European going to a tropical region going insane, and then they go insane.
Well, I was referring to the Joseph Conrad book, but I also get that you mean the
I know.
doco. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll just cut this out.
No, all of it. I mean, all of it.
All of it. The whole
Everything is
thing.
the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
But-
the reason the doco is called Hearts of Darkness is that
Yeah. No, yeah.
he experiences the same thing as in the book. And this is literally a team of people making a film about Europeans in a tropical climate that have lost their minds. And then in the process, they all lost their minds trying to make this film.
Love it. So what you're saying is that there's a Hearts of Darkness doco about this, but instead of it being based on Apocalypse Now, it's based on Island of Dr. Moreau.
There actually is a documentary about the making of this film.
We have to watch it.
I know, and it's very similar to Hearts of Darkness, and I wish I wrote down the title, but it's something like Hearts of Darkness, or like The Island of Dr. Moreau as envisioned by Richard Stanley.
Wow.
Now, Richard Stanley is like a key character in this whole thing. And I'll get into this in a second because I'm not going to launch into it now, but essentially this episode is going to run a little bit differently because whilst we love to joke about how silly the movie is, and there's definitely dumb bits of this movie,
Yeah.
I really want to tell you about the production of this movie and the history of it because it's fucking bonkers.
If we ever have a Patreon, we got to watch the doco and talk about it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's just an incredible story. Just as a general overview of the film, again, it was made in 1996. It got 4.6 stars on IMDb, which is why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
It was directed by John Frankenheimer. And the screenplay was by Richard Stanley, and it was rewritten by John Hutchinson.
Right.
I'll give you the brief overview of the plot.
Yeah.
And I say brief, but it's not because the plot's bonkers.
This might also help clarify for me what the fuck was going on.
I tried to synthesize a lot of things into succinct sentences because at first my overview was like a page and a half long.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is nonsense. Also, important point is that this film deviated from the book.
Oh, thank God.
And I don't necessarily know in what ways because I haven't read the book and that's a lot of research I didn't have time to do.
Yeah. You didn't read a whole book in the evening?
I'm sorry. I didn't do it this morning. Now, this is also based in 2010 and I don't know why. Like it's set in 2010, but it was made in 1996.
Wait, it's set in 2010?
Yeah.
The whole time it was set in 2010?
Yeah.
What?
I don't know why. In 2010, Edward Douglas survives a plane crash and is rescued by a passing boat. Aboard Montgomery, Dr. Montgomery tends to him. When they arrive at Montgomery's destination, referred to as Moreau's Island, Montgomery tells Douglas to disembark with him so they can use a radio on the island. At the main house, Douglas meets a daughter of Dr. Moreau's called Aissa. Montgomery tells Douglas how Moreau vanished after becoming obsessed with his animal research. Montgomery becomes sinister and locks Douglas in his room. Couldn't explain it in a better way.
Yeah.
Douglas escapes, but soon uncovers the mutant hybrids that live on the island. Aissa leads him to the village of mutants, where Douglas meets the large hybrid population. Dr. Moreau arrives and inflicts pain on the hybrids through remote-controlled implants. He forces the village to give him Douglas. Moreau spends a lengthy amount of time calmly discussing his work with Douglas, who finds it straight up gross. Yeah. Preach, King. Moreau finds out a hybrid named Lomai killed a rabbit, and he vows that he will be brought to justice. At the trial, Moreau's son Azazelo unexpectedly shoots Lomai. His body is burned, and a mutant called Hyena Swine comes and notices the pain implant among his remains. Hyena Swine removes his own implant. Montgomery sets the other beasts after him. Meanwhile, Douglas tries to contact the outside world, but Montgomery sabotages the radio, and Aissa reveals to Douglas that she is a cat hybrid. Hyena Swine's trackers turn on his side. They remove their implants and they kill Moreau. Douglas tries to stop Aissa's regression into a hybrid with a serum. However, Montgomery has already destroyed it. Meanwhile, Moreau's son Azazelo turns on the family and leads the savages to the armory. He shoots a drunken Montgomery dead at the village, and Hyena Swine's faction rampages around the island. Azazelo hangs Aissa before being executed by Hyena Swine, who then dies in a burning building, shouting, "Father!"
Yeah.
Douglas escapes on a raft. He reflects on the savagery of humans, and he leaves the island in fear.
Yeah,
that is the overview.
Every other time on this podcast I've said I hated the experience of watching that. I take it back because then I watched this movie, which I really had a visceral reaction to watching because it's so uncomfortable. Also, I love how all of them have like these crazy complex names, but then there's Hyena Swine.
Hyena Swine.
It's just the name of his hybrid.
Azazelo, Aissa. And then it was like the leopard was fucking... Lomai, which is a cool name.
It is a cool name.
Lomai was like a tragic character. I thought Lomai was going to be way more important, but really Lomai just killed a rabbit and they were like, you're a bad boy because you're meant to be a human, not an animal, so you're dead.
Well, no. Dr. Moreau forgave him.
He forgave him. But then Azazelo shot him.
Yeah.
Because Azazelo's a loose unit.
He was, man.
Yeah.
I have no idea why.
Also, I think I should also bring up, just on the side, he is superfluous to the plot. He doesn't matter. But Moreau's band of family and friends includes a very small man called Magi,
Yeah.
who is like a mini version of Dr. Moreau.
Yeah.
And Mike Myers has very notably said that Mini-Me was based on Magi from this film.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why Magi is in this film later, because it's one of the fucking funniest pieces of trivia I've ever read. And it's Marlon Brando being fucking insane. So also notable about this film, the cast is kind of really good.
Yeah.
It's got Marlon Brando as Dr. Moreau. We've got Val Kilmer as Montgomery. We've got David Thewlis as the main character.
All of them are acting as if they're in a different movie.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is giving a very different performance. And for me, David Thewlis was the one who was closest to what the audience was actually watching.
There's a very distinct reason for that.
Okay.
Everything, it's so funny because doing research into it, I'm like, everything makes sense. Like, everything comes together once you understand the backstory of this insane film. I had dreams about this movie last night just because I couldn't wait to talk to you about it today.
Cool.
All right. But also just touching on some of the dumb bits of the movie. The makeup and special effects, like, the design of the characters and animal creatures was batshit wild.
It's like, I get some of the motivations for why they're meant to be these horrific animal hybrids, but also I feel like all of them looked very samey. They all looked, I would describe, visually muddy.
They did. And then Dr. Moreau was designed in this really weird way where he was allergic to the sun, so he had this ointment on his face all the time. So he was always like, he looked like a ghost in these long white robes and a face full of ointment. Really weird design choices.
Also, I hate, like, all of the hybrids are men. All of them are men, except for Aisa, who is beautiful, and she's a cat, she's feminine little cat.
The opening scene of Aisa is her dancing, and then David Thewlis's character Douglas is just watching her, and we were noting to each other, there's so many movies where a man meets a woman and she's just dancing by herself and he's watching her, because the producers are like, how do we make her sexy from the get-go? But she doesn't know it.
She dancing, and
If she was sexually assertive, she'd be a whore, but she's got to be sexy. She just doesn't know it yet.
Yeah.
Funny fact about that as well, I realized that in the original novel, there's no female character. All the hybrids are men.
That doesn't surprise me.
And all the main characters are men.
One bit.
And it's only the movies that insert a female character, and they're always inserted as a love interest of Douglas's.
What is it? Art and film has this reputation of being a bastion of, like, lefty, but then you also find, like, a lot of weird sexism and misogyny and 100%. Racism stemming entirely from movies.
We need a woman, but someone's got to fuck her. Yeah. So she can be the love interest. Great. She's either going to be the romantic lead or she's going to be his mum, and there is no in between.
No.
So I'm going to run you through what the fuck happened with this movie.
Yes, please. Tell me the Hearts of Darkness of this.
I've got 5 full pages to tell you. Let me shuffle my pages. Look.
This is basically our episode of The Dollop.
Yeah, 100%. So you've got to do a lot of funny voices.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What are you talking about, Dave? All right. The chaotic events of the making of this film quickly led to its becoming one of the most difficult and troubled productions in Hollywood history.
Wow.
A film version of Dr. Moreau had been a long-standing dream of the original director, Richard Stanley.
Oh, no.
The most notable thing about this film is that Richard Stanley was the original director. He wrote the script. It was his baby. Like, it was his dream project.
This is a tragic beginning because we know the ending.
We know, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, this was directed by John Frankenheimer.
Yeah.
Not Richard Stanley. So a film version of Dr. Moreau had been a long-standing dream of original director Richard Stanley. By the way, Richard Stanley was in the June documentary that you showed me.
Oh.
Jodorowsky's June.
Oh, that
He's
guy.
the long-haired man in the cowboy hat.
Yes.
Yeah. Really distinctive style. That's Richard Stanley.
I knew the name was familiar. He's a fucking punk rock art director.
So fucking sick. He's a lovely dude. He has really interesting, like, ideas and visions.
Yeah.
His idea for this film sounded good.
Yeah.
Because he had a lot of love for the project.
He's incredible. There's a reason he's in the Jodorowsky documentary. Like,
let's get into it.
Yeah. Now this is very tragic.
Yeah. He spent 4 years developing the project before getting the green light from New Line Cinema. New Line managed to secure Marlon Brando, but sometime later, Stanley learned that New Line had gone behind his back and offered the movie to director Roman Polanski.
Oh.
Furious, Stanley demanded a meeting with Brando, who unexpectedly proved very sympathetic to Stanley's vision. Apparently, they had numerous meetings, and Brando loved Richard Stanley and went, you know what, fuck it, yeah, this sounds great, I'm in it. Screw Polanski, I'll only do it if you direct.
Okay.
So he almost lost his project from the get-go, and he fought for it back, which is great. With Brando supporting him, Stanley was confirmed as director, and he was also able to recruit 2 major stars, Bruce Willis as Douglas and James Woods as Montgomery.
Okay, so James Woods, inspired casting for Montgomery.
Yeah.
Bruce Willis, shocking casting for Douglas.
I know. I can't imagine him as Douglas.
No.
Douglas is meant to be like a UN. He's meant to work for the UN.
Yeah.
Like he's like some fucking like.
Bruce Willis is too muscly.
Yeah.
He like David Thewlis, I thought was like
David Thewlis looks like he works for the government.
Yeah, I think he was an odd leading man, but he was fantastic. He was the only person I thought was doing a good job.
There's so many reasons for that.
Okay. All right.
Buoyed by these developments, Stanley enthusiastically launched into pre-production, collaborating with special effects creator Stan Winston on the creation of makeup and costumes for Moreau's hybrid creatures, and preparing the locations and sets. Like Stanley chose everything. He dreamed of the way things would look,
yeah,
but he didn't get to be part of really the execution of it.
Yeah.
But he dreamed of the way things would look. He chose Australia as the location to shoot.
Yeah.
He just put a lot of care and love into how this film was going to look and where it was going to be. However, as the time for principal photography approached, problems began to multiply. Bruce Willis dropped out of the film as he found out Demi Moore was divorcing him. But this was a very secret thing. This was in 1996, and they officially announced that they had divorced in 1998.
Right.
But Bruce Willis had just found out that it was going to happen.
You know what? I don't like him, but I kind of can't blame him.
Yeah.
For that. That's fair.
Yeah. Bruce Willis was replaced by Val Kilmer, which is interesting because Bruce Willis was going to play Douglas.
Yeah.
So he was replaced by Val Kilmer, who, to Stanley's dismay, demanded a 40% reduction in the number of days he was required on set.
What?
Stanley solved this problem when he had the idea to switch Kilmer from the protagonist to the supporting role of Montgomery.
Yeah.
Who had far less screen time. However, this meant James Wood had to leave the production. So James was kicked out so they could put Val Kilmer in his role, but then they still had no leading man.
I think he could have been all right as Douglas.
Yeah, true. He's a bit like...
He's
like a wiry, weird dude.
I also feel like part of the point of Douglas is that, like, I think James Wood could have gone nuts, right? I mean, he in real life is very nuts in a very negative way.
Yeah.
So Val Kilmer was switched to Montgomery. Now James Woods is out.
Yep. New Line hurriedly recruited former Northern Exposure star Rob Morrow for the lead role.
Weird choice.
I don't think he's a very good leading man.
No.
Another significant setback occurred not long before filming began with the suicide of Brando's daughter, Cheyenne. Cheyenne was a really tragic figure. I did a bit of research into her last night just to find out what happened. She was the daughter of his Tahitian wife.
Right.
And I can't remember her name, unfortunately. They had 3 kids together. And Cheyenne grew up very neglected by Brando. And I think that scarred her for her whole life because he just didn't want her to be part of his life. Either way, Cheyenne committed suicide, and the devastated star retreated to his private island, leaving Stanley and his producers in limbo, not knowing when or even if he would show up. But production had to go ahead, so they gave him a deadline to be in Australia, and he did arrive.
Side note, I love that Brando is the connective tissue between Apocalypse Now and Island of Dr. Moreau.
Yes.
Don't shoot Marlon Brando in the tropics. Don't do it. And don't cast him as an egomaniac. Just don't do it. It will not go well.
Yeah. I feel like everything that happened in Apocalypse Now, like Hearts of Darkness was such a sad and incredible story. This one's just ridiculous. Like this is the comedy version of what happened in Apocalypse Now.
Love it.
So now we're up to the actual shooting of it. That was all pre-production madness.
Holy shit.
Now they're finally going to the shoot where everything gets 10 times worse.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Richard Stanley is still director.
He is still director.
Which, is odd from an outsider perspective.
Well, I'll tell you now that he only lasted on set for 4 days.
Oh, no.
Yep.
Baby.
It gets bad. So, shooting is split into 2 sections. There's one here as Stanley as director. The next is Frankenheimer as director.
Right.
The chosen location for the film was the rainforest outside of Cairns in North Queensland.
Which is why they went nuts.
Oh, absolutely. I was saying to you yesterday, I would I would bet most of my money on the fact that the highest rate of crime exists in Queensland because everyone there is fucking feral. And it's because of the heat and the humidity. Apologies to anyone listening from Brisbane.
Isn't it? I think our highest rate of crime is like just outside Adelaide. Like it's our Pacific Northwest where it's like it's known as really nice, but then there's also a weirdly large amount of serial killers there.
Oh yeah, but that's an outdated statistic. There haven't
Okay.
been that many serial killers recently, but definitely
Nice.
true between the 60s and the 90s, heaps of serial killers outside of Adelaide. And it's because there was so many places to bury bodies there because it was barely cultivated.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes, they went to North Queensland, which is like red flag number 1. Because you have to deal with the heat and the locals. Tensions between Stanley and New Line had been growing during pre-production, partly because of Stanley's quirky, insular nature and his marked unwillingness to attend studio meetings. But they reached crisis point within the first few days of filming. Stanley's vulnerability to studio pressure was exacerbated by the continuing absence of his main ally, Brando. But the biggest problem proved to be the notorious on-set behavior of Kilmer, who reportedly arrived 2 days late to the shoot. And he didn't know any of his lines.
I had a neutral to above average opinion of Val Kilmer until that.
I mean, Val Kilmer has always, he's had a reputation for being difficult.
I didn't know that.
Massive reputation. But the reason that reputation got solidified was because of this movie.
Wow.
He is the villain of this story.
Oh, okay.
He's a bad dude.
That's great because he's also the villain of the movie. But Richard Stanley sounds like he's just an artist who got stuck doing a studio movie.
Yeah,
I feel bad for him.
He was like a sweet soft boy that had a wonderful idea, and the studio was like, he's so weak, and all the people on his set were like, he's so weak.
Yeah.
So Kilmer, this is funny because Bruce Willis left the production because Demi was divorcing him.
Yeah.
Kilmer later attributed his obnoxious behavior to the fact that just as filming began, he learned from a television report that he was being sued for divorce by his wife of 7 years. So he arrived in a foul mood and then found out he was getting divorced.
Yeah, well, you know what? Fuck him.
Can you imagine being his wife? You're like, okay, honey, enjoy your shoot. All right, 3 months you'll be gone? Great. And the door closes and she just calls her lawyer straight up.
Yeah, those are related for sure.
I'm pretty sure that's how it went down. Whatever his reasons, many of the cast and crew have testified to Kilmer's bullying and his consistently hostile and obstructive manner during the first days of shooting. He would not deliver the dialogue as scripted and repeatedly criticized Stanley's ideas. What little footage was shot was deemed unusable. The studio mainly seems to have blamed the director for not getting Kilmer under control, but another significant factor was the sudden departure of co-star Rob Moreau on the second day of shooting.
Oh my God.
So their lead walked out 2 days in. Kilmer arrives 2 days late, not knowing his lines.
Well, the third iteration of the lead.
Yeah, the third iteration of the lead. And Rob Moreau was not happy there. With the location being pounded by bad weather that had temporarily stopped filming. And by the way, that bad weather was a hurricane.
Oh my God.
A hurricane. The hurricane hit the location. It also hit the boat that was traveling all of the wild animals to the set.
Oh my God.
And Richard Stanley was on the boat with them. Apparently a puma urinated on him.
Oh, well, that's not so bad. In the scale of he's on a boat in a hurricane with a bunch of wild animals, that's all right.
It's fine. I'm sure like the waves washing over the boat probably just rinsed him off quickly. But I loved that piece of trivia. It was a restless puma urinated on him. Yeah, so Rob Moreau walked out. With the location being pounded by bad weather that had temporarily stopped filming, Moreau found himself unable to bear the tension and hostility on set any longer. So he telephoned New Line chairman Rob Shea in Hollywood and tearfully begged to be let go. They agreed.
Oh no! Oh.
Can you imagine you're like an actor in Hollywood? You've been in the business for a number of years, and this is the set that you call up an executive in tears saying, "Let me come home."
Oh my God. I mean, he was on a sitcom, you know? I guess he wasn't cut out for studio life.
After a third day of filming, so now we're on day 3. There's been a hurricane, they've had their lead man leave, and Val Kilmer got divorced. Like, he got sued for divorce. And now he's antagonizing everyone. Day 3, following emergency consultations with its on-set executives, New Line abruptly fired Stanley by fax. So my apologies. I thought it was 4 days. It was 3.
By fax?
By fax. The beleaguered director reacted angrily, shredding documents in revenge, and then vanishing after being delivered to the airport for the return flight to Hollywood.
No, I don't blame him.
Now, this is problematic, though, because they dropped him off to the airport, but he vanished.
Oh.
He didn't get the flight.
Oh.
So Stanley had been offered his full fee on condition that he left the production quietly and did not speak about his firing. So his disappearance caused consternation at New Line, who feared he might try to sabotage the filming.
What the fuck? Is this not a professional film set? What the fuck is going on?
I want to watch the film about this film.
I've been on student films that are more professional than this.
Yeah.
This is fucking nuts.
Again, day 3. I think it was day 4 that they dropped him off at the airport. So 4 days in, he was sent back to Hollywood.
But vanished, and they're worried he's going to sabotage? What the fuck?
Security was tightened in case he was actually going to try and sabotage the film set.
What is he? A goonie? What's he gonna do?
He's the loveliest man. Like, they fired him for being weak. Do they really think he's gonna actually sabotage them?
It sounds like they think he's gonna have people open a door and paint falls on them, or release barrels and everyone goes, whoa, 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 and they fall over like it's Home Alone.
Stanley later revealed that he had a total emotional breakdown. And instead of getting a flight home, he retreated to a remote farm near Cairns to recover by himself.
Yeah.
So Stanley's removal also predictably sent shockwaves through the cast and crew. Yeah. Outraged female lead Fairuza Bulk stormed off the set after a heated exchange with the New Line executives. So they've lost their lead, there's been a hurricane, Stanley's been fired, and now the female lead has stormed off set.
Well, I mean, you said this was his vision for 4 years, and he's like an art director, right? He's a genuine indie darling.
It's been his project for 4 years, but it's his favorite book. He's thought of this as a kid.
Yeah. And of course he had an emotional breakdown. He got fired because other people were being shitty.
Yeah.
And of course you would leave. And if you sign on to that movie, you sign on because you're going to work with Richard Stanley.
It's satisfying knowing that the film turned out to be an absolute disaster because it's karma for firing the man that could have made this film good.
Yeah. You had it in your hands. It's like if Francis Ford Coppola got fired 3 days into Apocalypse.
Yeah. So she stormed off set after a heated exchange with executives and then had a production assistant drive her all the way from Cairns to Sydney.
What? Why?
A distance of some 2,500 kilometers in a rented limousine. Bulk's agent then called her and warned her in blunt terms that the studio would ruin her and that she would never work in films again if she broke her contract. So she was soon forced to turn around and return to set.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Now we're moving on to Frankenheimer. Now, have you heard of John Frankenheimer
No,
before?
I have not.
He is an old Hollywood director. Right. He did fucking Birdman of Alcatraz and The Manchurian Candidate.
Oh.
Yeah, he's
old school
director.
Studio guy.
Yeah.
Real
gruff.
I'm going to get it done.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get why
he's not in there for the art, he's in there for the money. Think of Richard Stanley and then the antithesis of him. This is John Frankenheimer.
This is my new favorite story.
It is mine. This is why when we were watching it, I was on my phone the whole time because I was trying to watch the movie, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the story of what happened.
This is an infinitely more interesting story. This is incredible. I love this.
Yeah. So, with a potential disaster looming, New Line brought in veteran director John Frankenheimer. He came on board in part because, like virtually every member of the cast and crew, he wanted the opportunity to work with the legendary Brando. Brando was a real appeal and attraction. He was the heart of the project because everyone just wanted to do something around him, except Richard Stanley, who actually wanted to make the story.
I feel like a lot of these problems would have been solved if Brando was never cast, because then that wouldn't draw people who just cared about getting close to Brando.
It's funny that you say that because Brando wasn't Richard Stanley's first choice for Moreau. It was actually I wish I wrote down his name. I'll find it for you later, but I think he was a Scandinavian actor because I've never heard the name before.
Mads Mikkelsen.
Yes.
Actually, he would do a pretty good Dr. Moreau.
Yeah, I reckon he could. But you're right. Brando's turned the project into something completely different.
Yeah.
Just by being part of it.
Yeah.
And he was the person that brought in all of this cast and crew that ruined the film. Frankenheimer also used the studio's desperation to his advantage, successfully demanding a hefty fee and a 3-picture deal in exchange for his services. So he got everything he wanted. This is great for Frankenheimer. Well known as one of the last of the old-style Hollywood directors, Frankenheimer's gruff approach was radically different from Stanley's, and he soon alienated many of the cast and crew.
Yeah.
Brando agreed to his decision to have the then current script by Richard Stanley rewritten by Frankenheimer's previous collaborator, Ron Hutchinson.
Right.
Frankenheimer also needed to find a new lead actor to replace Rob Moreau, and he brought in David Thewlis to play Douglas. When David Thewlis arrived on set, Marlon Brando said to him, "Go home, David. This is not a good film to work on. It's cursed." Can you imagine that?
If Marlon Brando ever told me something was cursed, I would believe the fuck out of him because I'm like, and you're a curse.
Yeah.
You know.
I'll go into it a bit later in the actual trivia section, but David Thewlis had his reasons for joining the film. He just had literally the worst experience of his life.
I'm also surprised it was Frankenheimer, just because Thewlis is the one that, for me, feels the most synergized with Richard Stanley. You know what I mean?
100% agree. Like, if John Frankenheimer is old Hollywood, David Thewlis is not old Hollywood.
No.
David Thewlis is an English actor he was like an up-and-comer at the time.
Yeah, critical acclaim. He's an art kind of guy.
He hadn't even appeared in Big Lebowski yet. I don't know what Hollywood production he had been in before this.
If you told me that Richard Stanley brought on David Thewlis and then Frankenheimer brought on Val Kilmer, I'd believe you more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. 100%. The whole production was shut down for a week and a half while these changes were implemented. So that was getting the script rewritten, getting David Thewlis down, getting the lead actress to cooperate. We are now about 2 weeks into this whole debacle.
Holy shit.
Once shooting resumed, the problems continued and escalated. Brando routinely spent hours in his air-conditioned trailer when he was supposed to be on camera, while actors and extras sweltered in the tropical heat in full makeup and heavy costumes. The antipathy between Brando and Kilmer rapidly escalated into open hostility, and on one occasion, as recounted in Lost Soul is the documentary about this.
Oh, cool.
We're going to watch it.
Yeah.
This resulted in the cast and crew being kept waiting for hours, with each actor refusing to come out of their respective trailer before the other. So Kilmer and Brando had a standoff for the whole day, not coming out of their trailer, and nothing got done.
I can't believe the ego of being Val Kilmer, and you're like, I'm going to out-ego Marlon Brando.
As I said, this film turned into a power struggle between three of the most stubborn men in the world, and that is Brando, Kilmer, and Frankenheimer.
Jesus.
And they all despised each other.
Now, I will say one thing. If I'm going to give any point to the movie's credit, it's that I reckon that tension between Val Kilmer and Marlon Brando actually translated really well on screen, because their weird sort of power struggle was palpable on screen, and it was kind of interesting.
There's also that section towards the end of the film where Kilmer is like impersonating Brando.
He's doing a weird Brando impression.
He's doing it with such malice, and that's just Kilmer hating Brando.
Now, see, that makes more sense now.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense in the movie, even though it was interesting. Yeah.
Weirdly enough, I read that Kilmer asked permission to impersonate Brando, and Brando was like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, of course, Brando's like, you're nothing to me.
Yeah, and also it's all about me again.
Yeah.
New pages of the script were turned in only a few days before they were shot.
Oh my God.
Frankenheimer and Kilmer had an argument on set which reportedly got so heated, Frankenheimer stated afterwards, "I don't like Val Kilmer, I don't like his work ethic, and I don't want to be associated with him ever again."
You know who the hero of this movie actually is the line producer. Imagine you get a script like 3 days before and you have to do all the pre-production for it.
I didn't linger on that, but you're dead set right. I can't remember his name. It's like Shane something. The line producer, they said that he was like the calm in the middle of the storm.
He'd have to be.
He was the person that woke up every morning and went, okay, we're going to get it done. If he didn't exist, the film wouldn't have gotten done.
If you were to make this a miniseries, I was going to say the line producer would be the protagonist.
Yeah, everyone said he was like a ray of sunshine in what was the worst experience of their life. And when he reflects on it, he went, I had a great time. He's just a really positive, sweet dude who held it all together. So he was kind of going between the actors, going between the director, going between the screenwriters, and getting shit done.
Yeah.
That man is a hero. But it's tragic because what resulted was this film. Yeah. According to Thewlis, we all had different ideas of where it should go. I even ended up improvising some of the main scenes with Marlon.
Oh my God.
Thewlis went on to rewrite his character personally. This is why Douglas makes
Yeah.
sense as a character, is that I think Thulis was like, okay, how would a person react?
Yes,
I'll do that.
I said over and over and over again while we're watching it, he's reacting like a person
Yes.
would, and the movie is pretending he didn't say anything.
He gave the best performance because it was understated and realistic.
Yeah.
Every other performance was insane and heightened and nonsensical.
He was in a good movie. He was in Richard Stanley's Island of Dr. Moreau,
Yes.
and then this other movie happened around him.
Yes, correct. The constant rewrites also got on Brando's nerves, and as on many previous productions, he refused to learn his lines, so he was equipped with a small radio receiver so that his assistant could feed his lines to him as he performed. This was a technique he had used on earlier films.
Famously in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
Why
Laziest
hire him
piece of
again?
shit. Meanwhile, friction between him and Kilmer elicited Meanwhile, friction between him and Kilmer elicited Brando to quip at Kilmer, "Your problem is you confuse the size of your paycheck with the size of your talent." Upon completion of Kilmer's final scene, Frankenheimer is reported to have said to the crew, "Now get that bastard off my set."
Jesus.
This is the last bit.
You're right. Val Kilmer is the villain of this.
Such a bad dude. Stanley had reportedly jokingly told the film's production designer to burn the set down when he left. Stanley himself later revealed that he had in fact stayed in Australia. He retreated to a remote area in Cairns to recover. There he had a chance meeting with some of the film's former production staff, who had been rehired as extras and were camping in the area. It was confirmed by these same production staff members in the Lost Soul documentary that with their help, Stanley secretly came back to the set over several days, disguised in full costume as one of the dog men, and performed as an extra on the film he had originally been hired to direct. It has also been reported that he showed up at the film's wrap party, where he ran into Val Kilmer, who was said to have apologized profusely for Stanley's removal from the film.
Yeah.
Because Val Kilmer is the reason Richard Stanley lost his job.
That's his mea culpa, right? Is that he wanted to throw his fucking weight around and it did nothing but blow up in his face.
Yeah.
I
I think we should write a miniseries about
Yes.
this. I think we should. Maybe we should plan this out because, as you say, it's that first line. Like, I think it would be Shane that is the protagonist.
Yeah.
And then Stanley being like this wonderful storyline with Val Kilmer going over the top.
Yeah, because initially I was thinking it's got to be the lead actress because she stays. It can't be Richard Stanley because he leaves, right? But then I'm like, she's not an active participant. So it's got to be the line producer because he holds it together.
It could almost also be David Thewlis because he comes into the production, but he comes in too late.
Yeah,
he misses
then you
too much.
can't have the beautiful setup where Richard Stanley
All right.
fucks off, right?
We got this. Let's do this show.
Yeah.
I'm on holidays now. So
Okay, well, let's do it.
that's the end of the production story, is that
Okay.
Stanley got his apology from Kilmer in the end at the wrap party. So that was the cursed, shocking, disastrous
Wow.
insanity that was this production.
Oh my God.
It was originally meant to go for 3 months and it went for 6.
That
It went for double the time.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
This is obviously a better story than any of the movies we've watched. Incredible.
I had the most fun researching it.
Yeah,
And we watched Raw 1. Raw 1. And I feel bad that we haven't lingered on some of the funnier bits of the movie, but there
Yeah.
isn't enough to linger on because really the film doesn't flop because it's necessarily ridiculous. It's just nonsensical. It has a bad structure.
Yeah.
It has bad performances and bad costume design.
It makes weird choices at every turn. For example, we were saying Marlon Brando is good, and I want to modulate that. I think he's good at doing what he's trying to do. I hate what he's trying to do.
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate his choice as a performance. He's doing it well, but I hate it. It doesn't fit. It doesn't work.
Yeah. And I think that the reason the disasters that happen on set bleed into the film because there's a lot of like continuity issues. The
There is.
performances are all over the place. They always
really
change in like style and substance.
I was so excited to see Tamura Morrison, and then he was a dog person.
He was a dog. He was Azazello.
And also, he might have been one of the worst in it.
He was.
I liked Tamura Morrison,
think
but he
it's-
gave a weird
But I
performance.
think it's because his character didn't make sense.
Yeah, but he also was responsible for like cutting to him, and his laugh was ha 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 ha.
That's true.
So I don't know if I can give him an entire escape. You know.
Let's linger on that moment at the end that you particularly loved when he said, "But to walk on 2 legs,
Beat.
that's very hard."
Pretty hard.
It's pretty hard.
Thanks, Ron Perlman. You did it.
Ron Perlman was like, he joined the production too because he wanted to act alongside Brando.
Yeah.
But he was meant to be there for all of like 3 weeks and he ended up staying for 4 months.
Oh my God.
Because they kept increasing the amount of lines he had to deliver and they made his character more important. He also was meant to be a blind priest, goat priest man. And he wore contact lenses that made him actually blind. Like, he was trying his hardest with this role.
Yeah.
He was, like, going fucking method for this tiny bit role alongside Brando.
You can see here and there the people that are still interested in making this a good movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
And all 4 of them.
all 4 of them. I feel like the lead actress, what was her name again?
Fazura Bulk?
She was...
Fazura?
I think she was doing a good job for a character that was horribly written. And that's more than I can say.
But you got this hint from everyone that nobody wanted to be there.
Yeah.
No one wanted to be there. You could feel it was like a haunted production in the film. Do you want to hear some extra trivia?
I would love to hear.
This has all been trivia.
It's just all true. We can't even,
But I've reserved some special pieces.
Okay.
I thought I'd start strong. We noted in one scene, there's a section where essentially Moreau is sitting with what looks to be an ice bucket on his head. He's got like a tin around his head and they put ice on it.
I forgot that, yeah.
And we couldn't make sense of it. It disturbed us greatly.
Yeah.
It was Marlon Brando's idea for Dr. Moreau to wear an ice bucket on his head in one scene. He came up with the idea out of boredom and because of the heat. Everyone was too afraid to ask him to remove it. Brando, explaining the idea to John Frankenheimer, said Moreau had secretly mutated himself into a dolphin man.
What?
The bucket was to cover up a blowhole in the center of his head, and the ice being poured in was to keep him hydrated.
What?
And they ran with it.
There's that they've scientifically proven that power can cause brain damage, right? That's the problem with having someone in power for too long, is it literally dumbs your brain and you make worse decisions. And I feel like that's never more true than with ultra celebrities.
Correct.
Marlon Brando thinks he's a king.
It's hard though, because yes, they are worse decisions, but are they the best thing to read about 30 years on? Yes, because all of the trivia that I found in this film is about how Marlon was impossible and how he would do things to purposefully spite people. And I dig it.
I love how he did all these things. And again, he's not even the villain of the story. Val Kilmer was somehow worse. He out-Brandoed Brando.
Yeah. So here's a couple things about David Thewlis. He signed on for the prospect of working with Marlon Brando, a free trip to Australia, and a hefty salary. He came to regret his entire participation. David Thewlis has stated that he would like to give a real account of the film's production, but fears that if he did, he would never work again. He skipped the premiere. He said that the experience was so negative, he vowed to never watch the finished movie.
Yeah.
And according to David Thewlis, Marlon Brando described making the film as like trying to complete a crossword puzzle while falling down an elevator shaft. Yes, he makes the worst decisions, but he says the funniest things. Marlon Brando... Okay, this for me was my favorite. Marlon Brando became obsessed with Nelson de la Rosa, who was... Or de la Rosa, I guess. Nelson de la Rosa, the world's smallest man.
Yes.
And he insisted the script be revised to include a character for him.
What?
De la Rosa played Magi, a miniature version of Dr. Moreau who doesn't speak. And as I mentioned earlier, Mike Myers found this hilarious, and Mini-Me was based on Magi.
Yeah, it's weird because I swear I've seen that guy in something before.
Me too.
Yeah.
Apparently, Marlon Brando was also obsessed with the idea of holding him in his arms like a baby.
What?
So he wanted them to write scenes where Moreau was holding Magi like a baby. And they were like, well, now it's weird.
No, it was weird before.
It was weird from the get-go.
The whole time was weird. He's also fully nude in one scene where he's like he's helping Montgomery hand out the serums. He's always dressed identical to Brando.
Yep.
It's so bizarre.
It's all Brando, baby. Nelson de la Rosa acted up on set. He would lash out physically at fellow actors. And he used his sister to translate pickup lines to the female extras who described him as very sexual. So Nelson de la Rosa was invited onto set by Marlon Brando to essentially be his little miniature baby.
Yeah.
And then he was just really aggressive and sexual.
Had to fuck.
As I mentioned, it was the location shooting. My apologies. The location shooting was scheduled for 6 weeks, 1.5 months. and extended to 6 months.
Oh my God.
That guy that we were talking about that was pretty much going to be like the hero of this whole story was called Shane Mahan. And he was not aware of Richard Stanley's presence on the set at the time Richard Stanley was disguised as a dog man as an extra. In retrospect, Shane recalled that one of the background performers had behaved rather strangely. There was this one guy that would never take off his mask. I'd say to him, "Do you need some water? Do you want to take that mask off and take a break?" And he never would. This intense dark brown eye would just stare at me back through the mask. I love that.
This is a great scene in the miniseries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. This is another favorite. All of them are favorites.
Yeah.
Due to Marlon Brando's infamous large appetite and dislike of Val Kilmer on set, he would request and eat large amounts of cabbage an hour before a scene started.
What?
And would silently fart on purpose numerous times to leave what was described as a foul stench that would annoy Kilmer.
I'm back on his side. I like that.
And last piece of trivia, Marlon Brando wore a small radio receiver to aid him to remember his lines. Co-star David Thewlis claimed he'd be in the middle of a scene and suddenly he'd be picking up police messages instead. And Marlon would repeat, "There's a robbery at Woolworths."
So he really had no critical thinking at all. It was just repeating verbatim what was said to him.
Yeah. Fuck. What do you mean, Dr. Moreau? There's a robbery at Woolworths. Backup. We need backup.
Holy shit. I also feel like that says a lot about how much sense the lines that Dr. Moreau was given made. Fucking hell. Also, at the beginning, we could have sworn that David Thewlis was fighting Val Kilmer. Was it just someone who just coincidentally looked a lot like Val Kilmer?
Yeah.
Then poor stunt double choice, because it just looked like Val Kilmer.
Believe it or not, that's not the biggest problem with this film.
No, I know. It really wrinkled me when first watching it.
Yeah. We didn't really get a good look at the guy's face, but he really looked like Val Kilmer from certain angles. He looked like a more baby-faced Val Kilmer.
And oh God, I don't even know how to continue talking about this movie.
Well, that's all the history for you. Again, it's a silly film and it had the most cursed production in the world, and you and I are going to watch Lost Souls so we can watch Richard Stanley's dreams shatter before his eyes. Because he never really got... I feel like this would have been the film that could have made him as a director. Yeah. But as it is, he's very unknown. He's barely had any big projects under him.
He would have been Denis Villeneuve, but late 90s, early 2000s, right? Art director turned studio director.
This was his big shot. This was his baby, and it got destroyed.
Oh, sweet. What a sweet man.
And it was credited to John Frankenheimer, but at least his name goes up against this shocking, shocking film. Here's a couple of reviews as well.
Yes,
just to tie it off for you. So the film was met with negative reviews, obviously. Rotten Tomatoes currently rates the film with a 24% rotten rating, and the film grossed only $49 million worldwide on a $40 million budget.
Yikes.
With marketing and advertising, they made no money.
Yeah, absolutely.
In an article written upon Brando's death in 2004, critic Roger Ebert described The Island of Dr. Moreau as perhaps Brando's worst film. Here's a review from Mike Clark from USA Today. The movie keeps switching focus without ever getting its bearings, and when Brando exits earlier than expected, there's little but mayhem to fall back on. Jason Bally from Flavor Wire said, roughly akin to watching a slow-motion train wreck in which the flames spread into the bush and become an out-of-controlled wildfire. What the hell happened? And this is my favorite one. This is Brandon Judell from Critics Inc. The most exciting characters are killed off too early, and what we're left with is Satan's Sesame Street. Yeah. And that is the terrible, cursed story of The Island of Dr. Moreau, 1996, ripped away from Richard Stanley.
Incredible.
Thank you.
Incredible.
I did it myself.
Yay.
I would give this film... It's not the worst that we've seen. Yeah. Because, it has some semblance of, action and adventure. They're really hitting a lot of... whoever rewrote it, I'm sure it was a lot of Richard Stanley's effect, but whoever rewrote it also just had a general understanding of basic structure. Yeah. So it was kind of hitting all the beats that it kind of needed to. But I would give this a solid 3.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think for me, like, it could be a 5 or a 6, or it's just meh, right? But it has two things that really kill its rating. One is that for the first half, even though there's interest, it suffers from the crime of still somehow being boring. It's somehow jam-packed with shit, but none of the shit is interesting enough as a plot beat. And then in the last third, it really falls apart. And like, if it wasn't for those things, I'd say it was like a 5.5. But instead, for me, it's a 3.
Yeah.
Maybe 3.5. So I can say it's better than, say, like, God's Not Dead.
Nice.
Yeah. But it was still really unpleasant to watch.
So bad.
Wow. We did it.
We did it. What are we watching next week?
Well, next week we're watching Vampire in Brooklyn.
Ooh, I know nothing about it, but it sounds sexy.
It sounds sexy.
Ooh,
It
we're gonna have a
sounds
sexy
silly.
time.
Obviously,
Should I go fully nude while we watch it?
Yes.
Fully naked.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought.
Whereas I will redon my Halloween outfit of the Christmas vampire.
Yes. Perfect.
But
All right.
but more Brooklyn based, so it'll be like, hey, I'm walking here.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.